Okay, so we are going to start with the jambalaya, and then once I move that to my regular stovetop back there, I'll start on the cornbread. But I just wanted to read you a little bit of something about what jambalaya is, because some people might not know. It was new to me. I'd heard about it, but it was new to me. I'd never had it before, and so when I created this recipe, I kind of had to do my research. So I'll just read you a little bit about what I found out about it. One thing is, how do you say it? And I found out that you can say it jambalaya or jambalaya. And it's a rice dish of Spanish influence, interpreted first in the Caribbean and then reinterpreted by Cajun and Creole cooks as a spicy mixture of Louisiana ingredients. As a one-pot Creole dish, jambalaya always starts with a bunch of browned meat, ick. The meat can vary, consisting of meat like alligator or shrimp. After the meat, green peppers, celery, and onion are added, which are staples of many Cajun specialties. Stock and spices are added before the dish is cooked to completion, and of course, no dish of jambalaya is complete without rice. This spicy meal is a perfect way to ease into Cajun food because it's simple, yet it has a lot of flavor. So you can see my water is already boiling. So let's go ahead and add in, and I'll keep reading in a second, but I'm going to add in my first four things. Half-pound cremini mushrooms, and we'll just get these sauteing. So these are cremini mushrooms that I've sliced up. You could use, actually, I think these are white mushrooms, but you could use cremini mushrooms. The creminis didn't look as good as the whites, so I just went with the white mushrooms, and I just sliced them kind of chunky. This is one medium yellow onion. You could use a white onion, you could use a red onion, but I'm using a white onion. 2 ribs of celery. Whoops, got an onion piece. And 1 green bell pepper. So we're just gonna saute these, which just means cooking while stirring on high heat or medium-high heat. Some people will saute without adding any water in the bottom, which you can certainly do. It's called dry saute. And if that makes you a little nervous, you can just add a little bit as you go. But as vegetables cook and that heat gets in there, that water inside the vegetables comes out. And that's why things like mushrooms shrink down, onions will shrink down, because they're losing their water when they are heated. So I'm just going to get these going, and then I will finish reading about jambalaya. If you didn't like mushrooms, you could just leave them out. All right. And this is on medium-high or kind of high heat. If you have it on high heat, you want to just make sure you pay attention to it and that it doesn't burn. Okay. So we'll just do this for, what do I say, 7 to 8 minutes. And you can't leave it alone, but you just want to keep your eye on it. So what else about jambalaya? The rice in jambalaya gets its flavor from absorbing all the ingredients. So we're going to add the rice in here, and we're going to cook it from dry, and that way it's going to absorb all the flavor. The rice is infused with a blend of aromas, seasonings, vegetables, basically everything on the pot. Adding cooked rice to a jambalaya only coats the rice with flavors. We don't want that. Also, I thought it was interesting, someone asked online, what's the difference between gumbo and jambalaya? And they said both dishes boast multicultural Creole and Cajun roots, so they are similar. The main difference between the two is the role of the rice, which is integral to both. Gumbo is served with rice that is cooked separately, but rice is cooked with the jambalaya. And then, let's see, I also looked into the type of beans. I'm using kidney beans today in mine, and I saw other recipes that use kidney beans. But you can also use the red bean, which is smaller and more like a kidney bean. It's a little lighter in color than, well, pinto bean. The red beans are more like pinto beans. They're a little lighter in color than the kidney beans. And online it said that the smaller red beans are more beany tasting. I'm not sure what that means exactly. And then I found lastly what do you serve with jambalaya? Cornbread, corn on the cob, biscuits, green salad, cucumber tomato salad, chard or collard greens, and okra. So there's a little background on jambalaya for you. And let me just give this a little bit of a stir. Okay, so that was step one. And then also at the end of step one, we are going to add our 1 tablespoon of garlic. And you guys know how I love my little garlic chopper here. But before I have some cloves in here. This is just a little Tupperware garlic chopper. This is on my store if you're interested. The link is at the bottom of the comments or the start of the comments. And I already have some garlic cloves peeled, but I have one that is not peeled, and you can use this little cool tool. It's a silicone garlic sleeve, and you just put your garlic clove inside, and then you roll it until you hear it kind of crack and release, and then you pour it out. And there we go. That one worked well. The whole skin came off. And then we'll put that in there. This is that papery outer coating that we don't want. All right. So we're going to put all of our garlic cloves in to the chopper and then just pull this. The more you pull, the finer it chops. I really don't like chopping garlic the old-fashioned way, so I love, love, love this tool, and it is great. So we are going for 1 tablespoon. These are my magnetic measuring spoons that I love. And one little trick is if you're going to be measuring something with a measuring spoon, just dip it in the water or your broth or something first. It makes these ingredients come off the spoon a little easier and not stick inside. So look at that. I did pretty good. I'm just going to add it all in. If it's a little extra, that's all right. Okay. And you know what? I recently, where is it, got some mini spatulas. And I really like them for things like this, if you want to get all that extra garlic out. You can buy pre-peeled garlic cloves. You can buy pre-chopped garlic. It's often in oil, so you want to be careful about that. But I find that those types of pre-prepped things don't taste as good, so I still like to do mine kind of freshly peeled and freshly chopped. And we do put the garlic in a little bit later than the other stuff because it's a little more delicate and might burn or overcook. Oh, this smells so good. All right, so that is the completion of step one. Step two, we're going to add the all of the remaining ingredients. And let me just go down the list. 4.5 cups water, which I already have measured out here. 2 cans of salt-free kidney beans. I already have these. This is 2 cans worth. If you want to make your beans from scratch, go right on ahead. These are drained and rinsed. And I will show you the kind of kidney beans I used. I used the Westbury Organic, no salt added kidney beans today. Okay. And after kidney beans, we have some diced tomatoes, just 1 can. Diced tomatoes, I'm using the Muir Glen no salt added diced tomatoes, and you want to add the liquid as well as the tomatoes. Then we're going to add some rice, 1.5 cups of long grain brown rice. Let me double check that that's right. 1.25 cups dry uncooked long grain brown rice, and I am using the brand Lundberg. Then we're going to put in 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. I'm just using the Contadina tomato paste. This doesn't have anything else in it besides Roma tomatoes. Citric acid is a natural preservative. So I'm not going to do the whole can, but I'm going to do 3 tablespoons. And what I do with the leftover tomato paste is I put it in a little Ziploc snack bag, and then I just put it in the freezer for when I want to throw it into a soup or a stew that I'm making and I want a little extra flavor. And I recently picked up, let me show you, these little super cubes too, which I heard about from Tammy at Nutmeg Notebook. So I've been experimenting with these, and you could put little bits of chopped herbs or tomato paste or whatever in these, freeze them, and then you just pop them out and put them in a Ziploc bag and put them back in the freezer. So they have all different sizes of these. After the tomato paste, so we're going to add in some dried herbs and spices, a little 1 tablespoon of smoky paprika, and I already have this measured out. So this is 1 tablespoon. If you don't like smoky, you could just use regular paprika, but the smokiness is what makes this dish. And I'm just using smoked Spanish sweet paprika, and I always write smoked on the container because it looks just like the regular paprika, and I have used smoked in place of regular and have not meant to, so nowadays I always write smoked on it. I'm going to put in a 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. These are kind of hot and spicy, so if you don't like hot and spicy stuff, you can leave this out. I like a little hot and spicy, so that's just a 1/2 teaspoon. And then we're going to put in 2 bay leaves. I'm going to come back to the thyme in a second. So I'm just using Turkish bay leaves. Bay leaves are really good for helping kind of meld all the flavors in a soup or a stew. And then you want to take these out. Those were small, so I put 3. So we'll take these out before we serve the stew. And then the last thing is some thyme. You could use dried thyme. I'm using fresh thyme today, and it comes like this, organic thyme. And I've already prepared about 1 tablespoon of thyme, and I've also just given it a quick little chop chop. I think I did that. Yeah, okay. And thyme, fresh thyme is pretty robust, so it can take some boiling in a soup or a stew. Fresh herbs that aren't as robust would be like basil or cilantro or parsley. Those types of things I would add in at the end of cooking or after cooking. That looks so pretty right there. All right, so we're just going to mix all this together, stir it all up, and then I will transfer it to the back stove. Oh, this smells so good. Yummy. All right, I'm just kind of extra stirring because I want to make sure I have that tomato paste stirred in and not just in one lump somewhere. So I'm just fishing around to make sure it's dissolved. Okay. All right, so we're going to put this on the stove top, and I'm going to bring it to a boil back here, and let's turn this up. I'm going to get my mitts. Once it comes to a boil, then we can turn it down, put the lid on, and then we're going to let it boil for, how long do I say? 45 minutes. Okay. Oh, that's heavy. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and cover it. Okay, so we are going to do the cornbread. This is a variation on my pumpkin walnut cornbread on my website, straightupfood.com. But since it was Mardi Gras and we had the jambalaya, I thought I would experiment with mixing it up a little. So I made one yesterday with organic sweet potato, 1 can, instead of 1 can of pumpkin, and it turned out great. You could probably do this with fresh organic sweet potato. I haven't tried that yet, but it's probably just however much is in here. No. about 1.5, 1 3/4 cups, I would say, of mashed sweet potato. But the first thing we're going to do is get our pan ready. This is an 8 by 8 inch baking pan, and I'm going to line it with parchment paper. If you have a silicone pan, you can certainly use that, but this is used in place of oiling our pans, because we don't do oil here. All right, so what we're going to do is just take out some and leave enough to go up the sides a little bit. And this parchment paper can be found near the aluminum foil, the saran wrap. It can go into the oven up to 425 degrees and nothing sticks to it. So it's a great alternative for people who don't use oil. I don't put oil in my recipes, and I also don't put it on my pans. So, all right, so I'm just going to set this aside for 1 sec. And this is how we do the parchment paper. So fold it into quarters, fold it in half, and fold it in half again. Okay, that is boiling. I'm just gonna turn this down to low and put the lid on. And then we're gonna set the timer for 45 minutes. Oops. Okay. Now I'm using my Le Creuset little Dutch oven here, and this thing is heavy and it's a good conductor of heat. So you can go ahead and just turn that down to the lowest setting. Not like the warm, but like the lowest setting on mine is 2, and then below that is warm. Okay, so once we get this folded, we're gonna get our pan back. And this is the inside, right, where it's all together. Just eyeball that with your thumb, hold it in the center, and then push out with your fingernail so you can make a little ridge. See that? Now if you have too much here, you can trim a little away if you've estimated too much. A little bit hanging over is fine. All right, so trim off any excess and then make 2 cuts into the corners, which will make the corners lay nice. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to move this to the side while we get the batter ready. And let's see. See, I got to look at my instructions because I get lost. Okay, so that is step 1. And also into step 1, I have put my dates into my 1 cup water so the dates can be softening. So we'll get to those in a second. But now we're going to do the dry ingredients, and we're going to grind our oats, 1 cup of oats. I got a lot of stuff going on over here. So let me move my Vitamix up here on the counter. Okay. So I'm going to make my own flour. We're going to add some cornmeal, but we're also going to add some flour. And I'm using oat flour because I'm gluten-free, so oat flour is one that I use quite a bit. Okay. So we're going to put in, if you want to use pre-ground whole grain oat flour or different kind of flour, you could do that. That would be fine. So we're going to use 1 cup of rolled oats to start with. I'm just using the Bob's Red Mill Organic. These aren't the gluten-free. Sometimes I buy the gluten-free. And let me get my measuring cup. So we're going to do 1 cup of oats. And it's super easy to make flour in your high-speed blender. We're going to put the lid on, and then we're just going to grind it until it looks like flour. We're going to get a mixing bowl, and we're going to put this into the mixing bowl. Okay. A little sticking down there. All right, the other dry ingredients are 1.5 cups of cornmeal. Now, I don't know if you can see this easily, but you just want to use the traditional cornmeal, not the medium grind or the polenta grind or not corn flour, cornmeal. And I will show you, this is the kind I'm using, the Arrowhead Mills organic yellow cornmeal. And if you can only find the medium grind or the polenta grind, you can grind it along with your oats in here to make it a little bit smaller. Because if you put a medium grind or a polenta cornmeal in here, it's not going to cook enough and it's going to be too gritty. All right. Next, we're going to put in some baking powder, 1 teaspoon. And you know what? I normally have my sodium-free baking powder, but I think I ran out of it. So I'm using this other kind instead. What did I do with my measuring spoon? See, this always happens to me. I know they're right in front of me somewhere. Oh, yep, they are. Okay, so we're going to do 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then do some baking soda. This is just Rumford baking powder. It's hard to find the sodium-free in the stores, and then I forget to order it online. I need to do that. And you don't have to do that, but if you want totally sodium-free, then it's called Hain. It's in my store, sodium-free baking powder. Then we're going to do 3/4 of the baking soda. Okay. And then anything else? Okay, that's it. That's all the dry stuff. And then I like to use a whisk. You could use a fork to blend all your dry ingredients together. You always want to do this whether you're making cookies or a cake. You always want to blend your stir your dry ingredients together so that leavening, the baking powder and the baking soda are evenly distributed. Okay. Okay, so we're going to leave that there, and then that was step 2. Step 3, we're going to blend our dates and our water here. So we're going to use the same Vitamix. You don't need to wash it in between. 1 cup water. And the recipe calls for 3 ounces of dates. I decreased that just a little bit to 2 ounces because this is more of a savory cornbread. But although we're putting in the sweet potato, so you can leave the dates as is, 3 ounces, if you want a sweeter cornbread. Just know that the dates are adjustable. Just going to blend these until everything's nice and processed. And you could hear how there's no loud noise going on here, which means I did not miss a date pit, which I sometimes do. These are the dates I'm using today. They're medjool dates. And if you've never used dates, this is what I use mostly in place of concentrated sweeteners like white sugar, brown sugar, maple syrup, molasses, agave. Dates work really well. They're just naturally very sweet, and they have a pit in them. So you want to make sure you get that pit out. If you miss it and you hear it in your blender, you want to stop blending and fish it out, because it is rock hard. Okay, so once we get those dates pretty well blended, we're going to add in our organic sweet potato. There's nothing in this except for organic sweet potato. So we're going to put in the whole can. Normally I make this with a can of pumpkin, which is a really great Thanksgiving cornbread or Christmas cornbread. so we're going to blend this up so it's nice and smooth. That is really nice and smooth. Looks like pudding. Okay, so let's go ahead and pour this in. Okay. And then we're going to stir that. Let me grab something. I love these little rice paddles for mixing. Okay, so we're just going to mix this until the wet gets incorporated into the dry, or the dry into the wet. And then instead of adding the walnuts, which are in the recipe, I'm going to leave those out. You can still add them if you want, but I'm going to leave them out for this because I'm going to be adding some other stuff. See, that looks just like cornbread batter, because it is. All right, so I'm going to set this aside just for a sec. Move my Vitamix. Ooh. Okay, so what I'm going to add to this is a ½ cup of corn kernels. This is just frozen organic corn, nothing else in there. And then I'm going to add some red bell pepper and some green onions. And I'm going to use my Vidalia chop wizard to do this because I thought it would be nice to have the bell pepper kind of small like the corn. And this was a humongous bell pepper, so I am just using half of it. So I use half for the batch I already made, and then just take off little pieces like this. Take out the seed bulb and discard that. And then you can take off this white membrane too, if you like. So once you get pieces like this, I'm going to show you how this chopper works. This comes with different size, what do you call these, blades? And then inside there's a little section where it pushes through. So just lay this on there, and you got to press kind of hard. Oof, that was a hard one. And then you can see in there, they're all perfectly little squares. And it's kind of loud too. Maybe if I did slightly smaller pieces, that would help. Yeah. I'm using a red bell pepper because it's nice and sweet, but you could use a different color if you wanted to. One more. Now, I tried this yesterday with my green onions, and it does work. It doesn't work as well as the red bell peppers, but I'll show you how it works. Okay. So some of it sticks, especially when you get down to the dark green papery parts. It doesn't work quite as well, but it still works. So I'm going to add this in. This just lifts off. I'm going to put that in with the corn and the batter. So that's a perfect tool if you want things the same size. And this is pretty neat. If you get the food stuck in there, you can just lift this out. Wash it. There's even a little tool that it comes with where you can, if there's still stuff in there, you can get it out. So this is really cool. I'm really happy with this tool. And so I think I'm just going to slice these the old-fashioned way. Okay. And I'm doing 3 green onions. Okay. This also makes for a really eye-catching final cornbread. It's just pretty with the red, the green, and the yellow in there. And then we'll mix that all up. This would be good too with like Mexican food. Okay, oh, that looks so good. So let's get our pan back. Now we're just going to put it in there. And what I do is I get like half or more in there and I stop, and then I push it into the corners so that parchment paper isn't in my way. If you want to make these into little muffins using your muffin pan, that would be really good too. A good meal would be like one of those little muffins or one of these pieces with some beans over the top. Oh boy. Okay. All right, so once I get all those corners pretty filled, then I'll add the rest. Now I could use that to spread it out, or I could get my trusty frosting knife, because you do want it even. And the way that I get it even is I just keep turning it, because when you turn it you can see, oh, that side's higher than this side, and then push it into those corners. Okay, this is very meditative. Okay, so there's no butter, oil, or fat in here, but it's still going to be moist because of those sweet potatoes, because of those dates. Okay, sometimes I have to force myself to stop. I just want to get it just right. Okay, all right, so that looks good. So the oven is already preheated at 350, so I'm just going to pop this in, and it is going to cook for 38 to 40 minutes. I usually go the full 40. And you want to let it completely cool when you take it out, or almost completely cool before you start cutting it, because it needs some time to set up. All right, so here is the cornbread, 2 pieces of the cornbread that I made yesterday. And you can see they rise up pretty nice. And they're cooked, but they're moist. And they're so pretty with all those colors in there. This is the size you'll get if you cut the 8x8 into 9 pieces, but you can obviously do slices, smaller pieces, or the little muffins, like I'd mentioned. Yeah, but aren't those nice looking? All right. And then lastly, let me show you the completed jambalaya. So there's the jambalaya, all cooked. The rice is all nice and done. I could garnish this. I wonder, do I say garnish this with anything in particular? No. So if you wanted to garnish it, you could put some fresh tomatoes on top, some sliced onions, a little bit of parsley. So that is it. We did it. There's both of our finished things. I'm gonna have a good lunch today. Check out the Amazon store if you're interested in any of the cool tools like the Vidalia chopper. Check out the cookbook and check out the website at straightupfood.com. All right, that's it. I will see you soon. Thank you. Bye.